Check, check.
Yeah.
1, 2.
Yep. We're getting it.
Right.
All right. What is going on, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of the Running and Gunning podcast with your host, Justin Sinan. So stoked to have you listening today. We've got a great guest from Missouri, Mr. Jace Allen. Some of you guys might know Jace. For those of you that haven't heard of him, the dude is an absolute killer, very consistent, 100% mobile style, a lot of times on public land. So there's a lot that we can all learn from this one, and I hope y'all enjoy it. But without further ado, Jace, how you doing tonight, man?
Good, man. How are you?
Doing good, dude. Trying to shake the cold. I feel like the whole family's
Hmm.
had strep throat for the past like week to 10 days, and haven't been sleeping good. The little one's been
Mm.
keeping me up at night. So
Well, that's no
fun
good.
times.
Fun
Yeah,
times.
yeah. Not much sleep lately. It's kind of miserable, but hopefully she's
Yep.
shaking it. So, what's going on with you, man? How's everything been? I know I haven't really seen you since, I guess, right before season kicked off.
Yeah, I mean, here in the last, um, I guess months since deer season has ended, I don't really do much at all. Mostly just, slump around and be depressed and, wish I was out there, chasing some deer. But, we're getting some sheds on the ground now. I found a couple this year. Really put a bunch of effort into finding one side to a deer, and put in 15 miles for that one just on my days off. Um, I have not found it.
Yeah, still
um,
searching.
yeah, still searching. So we'll see kind of how that goes.
Yeah, it's always a shame, man. I feel like all my biggest sheds, I've only found one side, and it
I
kills
I
me.
don't get it.
Yeah, right. I don't understand why. I feel like it's super rare to just find them both right there by each other. I mean,
Right.
how long have you been shed hunting now?
Seriously, shed hunting now for the last, I don't know, 8 or 9 years, something like that.
Right. So you probably do pretty well. I mean, how many match sets do you find versus like one singles?
I mean, let's see, just off the top of my head, 2 years ago, I found 30 sheds, and I think four of those sheds were two match sets. And
I got you.
then last year, I found like 20 something, and six of those antlers, those were three match sets. So I did like
Yeah,
phenomenal on match sets last year.
yeah.
Um, Found
It
my
is.
two
It's so
biggest
cool
matching
too.
sets. Yeah.
Yeah. There's nothing better than matching them up, especially fresh too, man. It's a
Oh
shame.
no.
I found like actually one of the antlers right here I got behind me. I was really trying to find his other side. I never could find it. Found it the season later, like pretty much just knew it was him from like the swoop and main beam it had, and it was all like just laid up right next to a log, maybe
Mm-hmm.
100 yards from where his other side was. And I'm like,
Oh.
wonder how many times I walked by it. But it made sense to me why I never found it, man. All them leaves jammed up against that big log, and that's right where it
Mm-hmm.
was. I just saw one tine sticking out at some point and grabbed it out of there. But
Crazy.
yep, yeah. Do the squirrels get them bad where you're at in Missouri?
Depends on where you're at. I mean, I found a good shed here recently, and it had, blood on the base. Wax ring was like 90% intact. It had only been on the ground for 5 or 6 days, and there was chew marks all over that freaking thing.
Oh man,
Oh,
that's a
yeah.
shame.
Yeah, I know.
That's a shame.
I'm gonna have to take a
And
shotgun in
we
there now.
right. I know. When I was in Maryland, man, they really weren't that bad. But I feel like the fox squirrels around here are probably like
Mm,
the worst for them. I guess that's what I've heard from other people. But
I've noticed the same thing. Those dang fox squirrels, they
yeah,
just,
they
I
got
don't
the
know, they'll
teeth on
sit.
them, I guess.
Yeah, they got the teeth, and I guess a really big stomach.
Yeah. So how did this season treat you, man? Let's get a little breakdown on that.
Phew. This last season was interesting, to say the least. I I I changed what I did this season a little bit just because of how the rest of my 2022 season went. So in 2022, I was in Kentucky and I shot a really nice buck on public land there. And the rest of the season, I chased one deer in Missouri, spent a lot of time, spent a lot of resources chasing after this deer, and this was a deer that I'd scouted in the summertime, and during season, I never saw this deer. I found what I was thinking was sign off of him. But essentially, I don't know if this deer was actually living on public whenever it was all said and done, and I did such a bad job hunting this deer that he didn't even know I existed, which is just awful. um, so after that, and just I, I don't want to say like that whole experience like left a bad taste in my mouth, but there's all sorts of different experiences and styles that I want to go do, and I also want to get better at hunting for specific deer as well. So how I kind of went about this year is instead of just hunting one specific deer, I wanted to hunt um, like a greater number of specific deer, whether that
Right.
be
So have like 3 or 4 good bucks to go after instead of just
mm,
one.
yeah,
Yeah.
instead of just one.
Right.
So I actually didn't do any summer scouting. I started scouting the day before season, and I found like 140s eight, pretty much right off the bat, and that started my my first specific hunt, and I got 3 hunts in on this deer before he figured out the gig was up. He figured out he was being hunted, and that deer left. And so I was like, okay, well, I've now, learned from this. I can't be like quite that aggressive on a deer. I pushed the aggressive line just a little bit too far, which was good to
Yeah.
learn. And then
Absolutely. Yeah.
the next one I started chasing was a really big one, and man, this is just like a really hard deer to hunt, but I hunted that deer pretty cleanly, um, for the most part. I never
Can you
did.
explain that just a little bit? Like, when you're referring
Sure.
to like hunting him clean, I mean, are you saying
Yeah.
like you were just real consistent with your access and exits, or what are you getting at?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So really consistent with my access, which was um let me think here. So like if I know that deer's in a spot, I'm gonna try everything that I can do to not walk like where that deer is walking. And obviously like I don't want the deer to win me also.
Right. Yeah.
So I needed to go in there and figure out. I already had an idea where he was. I just need to figure out like where he was going and all of his travel routes in and out of that spot there, and how I can hunt that as aggressively as I can without him knowing that I'm hunting him.
Right.
And um, that's gonna change from scenario to scenario, but um,
I'm sorry, I didn't
I
mean to
mean, I
cut you off there.
no,
You
no,
were
you're good.
you were kind of getting into like you're hunting him cleaner, and then like did it kind of click? Did it just not work out? Because you were being too passive instead of being more aggressive?
So I was being as aggressive as I possibly could. I mean, there's a certain point to where like you're gonna kind of have to go all in on these deer, but you can't do it without having like the necessary information to do it. The problem that I had there is I ran out of trees. Actually, the tree that I absolutely had to be in order to kill that deer, that tree died like 2 years ago,
Oh man.
and I was not comfortable getting up in that tree.
Yeah.
So that's kind of um, what I was dealing with a little bit on that one. So I had to sit back just a slight bit more than what I wanted to, and just tried to catch him, just slipping out of his bedding area, and I never did catch him, slipping out of that thing.
Yeah.
Um, while I was hunting that deer, I I was in battle with that one, but there was this spot on the same piece of public that was not getting pressured at all. And I went in there one evening, and I had two bucks come by me, and one of them was a really really nice one, and I was like, okay, so now I got two deer to hunt. So I'm hunting this really big one, and I start hunting this other deer, and on this on this other deer, I set up the first time to where those deer could move out of their bedding area with the wind to their nose, um, but they also couldn't smell me, and I was also just a little bit out of range. But that's okay. That's what you want to do, because that's the little bit of information that you need to make that aggressive move. Um,
Right.
Rather than just like go all in like the first time and hero it or zero it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I had a lot of, I can relate to a lot of what you're saying because I was trying to flirt with that line of like aggressive and like trying to catch a specific deer moving, and it was just,
Hmm.
how they are, man. He used the field and the wind to his advantage every
Hmm.
time. And then like the times where I would push it, he just never showed up. Wasn't because I got busted, but just dumb luck,
Right.
I guess. I mean,
Yeah.
so
Well, what ended up happening on that deer is that time was like the time I saw him move was on a northwest wind, and I went back in. I got on the other side of where they were coming out on a east wind, and they came out the same exact trail. And I'm thinking like, oh, this deer's being a little sloppy. Maybe I can just get in here on a south wind to where the deer have no wind advantage. I have all the advantage, and we'll see what happens. Well, he wasn't even bedded there. Thank God.
yeah,
So the next time I hunted it, I had to wait for 6 days before I got my next northwest wind, and I went back in there and went past my little observation tree only by 30 yards, and
yeah,
climbed up in a tree, and he was bedded in there that night, and I ended up snort wheezing him into my tree, but I ended up shooting him, and I didn't find him till a couple days later, which was not my favorite.
yeah,
But
yeah. I remember that. Like I remember when that happened. This season.
mhm, yeah, that sucked. Um,
It's
but
gonna happen to all of us, man. I mean, it is what it is. It's bow hunting.
right,
I mean, none
yeah,
of us like to have that happen, but I mean, it is what it is. I mean, at least you were able to recover him.
right, yeah, that was good. Um, but on that deer, if I wouldn't have got an arrow in him that night, then he would have figured out that he was being hunted, and then I would have screwed that
Right.
one up too. Um, but I guess just to wrap up the story on that bigger one, I ended up missing him a couple hours before I shot that other deer. We did a wind bump, which I haven't done before, but I was at the point where I was like, okay, I don't even know if he's in this patch anymore because I haven't seen him for days, and he was in there. He just wasn't moving. He moved then. Whenever we wind bumped him out of there.
Yeah.
But I also knew in doing that he wasn't going to he wasn't good to bed in that patch anymore. So that was going to be kind of like my all-in. Well, that was my all-in move on him. And then a couple months later, he ended up getting killed during the rut by an out-of-stater. He went 172.
Oh man, that is a damn shame.
Yeah, it sucked.
Yeah. Yep.
So
yeah, I had a good one this year. Get smoked by a rifle hunter too.
Lovely.
It is what it is. I don't know if
Yep.
he was a 170. He was like mid 60s at least. But yeah,
So
it stings. It sucks.
yeah, there was a couple stings there, but yeah, that's deer hunting. That's okay. I'm not gonna hate somebody, for shooting what's probably the biggest deer of their life. I'm sure they were jacked.
Did you have fun? I mean, I think like anymore now, I'm really trying to concentrate on like having a lot more fun. I feel like I'm taking it kind of like almost too serious sometimes in the past.
Yeah.
But not that I don't take it serious. Don't get me wrong. Like I enjoy it, but I think sometimes I try to step aside and like want to go do more out of state trips with like friends and stuff. You know what I mean? And just like have that. At least like in the evening, you can hang out with the boys and chill and have some fun.
Right. Yeah, that's good.
Like, it's just hard, man. It's just a different. Yeah, it's different when you got kids. I feel like I can't dedicate the time like I want to. You know what I mean? I'm really like focused like I really want to.
Right. Yeah, and I can put a little more time into it just because I'm single and I'm self-employed and I can and I can do those sorts of things, which definitely is nice. But yeah, sometimes I take it a little bit.
Yeah, and I'm not saying
too seriously.
I
Also,
wasn't. I'm sorry, I keep interrupting you, man.
You're fine.
Yeah, I was just kidding. It's like I'm not trying to blame having kids on why I didn't kill a buck this year. I'm just saying, like in general, it just throws a wrench in things a lot of times.
Right.
There's a lot of days I was jonesing to be out there and I couldn't. But it is what it is. I'll have time down the road. You know what I mean?
Right.
But yeah, man, one of the questions I had on my list for you, you already pretty much answered. So we're going to skip that one. And it was kind of breaking down how you see your way through hunting like one buck in particular. And I mean, you really, you kind of broke that down. So what's your take on early season over the rut? What would you, like if you had any choice of like to plan an out of state trip, are you going to try to get in there early or were you more of a rut guy?
That answer has changed here in the last year because I would have told you a year ago that I'd probably rather go out there early season rather than the rut. But that is mostly because, well, I've been historically not that successful in the rut, so I shot my first deer in November with my bow in 2021, and then I just shot my second one this year. But my second one this year, it's been a very interesting and exciting learning curve. I don't know if you're familiar with Bobby Worthington.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
You more of a rut funnel guy now, or?
Oh, dude, I am telling you what, that has made hunting the rut just like so simple so consistent, and it's like, but like I guess before me hunting, during the rut, I was hunting spots where luck played, um,
Right.
a part into it. Um, maybe the deer that I see, maybe it comes by me, within range, or maybe the deer doesn't. But what I've learned with these, or with this, at least this one funnel and other funnels that I've seen, is whenever you sit one of those, if there is a deer that is going to come through that funnel, guess what? They're going to be in range,
Yeah.
and they're going to be
Right.
broadside, and that is,
Mm-hmm.
if you set up accordingly, and that brings me a lot of, I guess, a little piece to the madness of it all.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think I was very lucky because I always kind of focused on that as a younger guy, like when I would rut
Mhm.
hunt. And we were where I was lucky in Maryland. We did have some good terrain features and stuff, and that
Mhm.
was a pretty basic thing, like that I had picked up, at a younger age that I didn't really account for. And man, here in
Mhm.
Kentucky, it's even better because we, around here we have a lot of like hollers and stuff,
Mhm.
and it's just dynamite, and it's like it's so predictable, and it's being a mobile hunter during like that time frame. It's so much easier for you to see what happens and adjust. I feel
Right.
like even if you're
Mhm.
off the chips a little bit. So
Right.
I agree
Well,
with you.
it's
I'm
been.
I'm with you kind of more like that's my main focus for scouting out of state like this year is to try and focus on hunting that during the rut and really scouting and dropping pins where I really want to be so I can go in there in the morning and,
Mhm.
find my way to where I want to be at. So, I don't know.
Mhm.
Just wanted to throw that out there.
Yeah. No, it's been. I mean, here in the last year, while I've been learning about these funnels, I've also undertaken, well, with that, scrapes, but also running trail cameras on these things. Um, this is the first year that I've ever run trail cameras, and that's been fun.
Oh,
And
heck yeah.
you talk about an unfair advantage. I love it.
Yeah.
um, um, but no, with like the funnel thing, there's like, so my my funnels here in Missouri is nothing like my funnel out there in Illinois. In Illinois, there is two bodies of water that tighten down the deer movement and make those deer go right by me. There is a couple ways that deer can get through there, but what we did is, um, we put a Troy Pottinger scrape in there so that the deer, whenever they are coming through that area and they got one of two funnels to pick, call it. If there's a big big scrape on one and there's not one on the other, then in my mind, they're gonna come, check the one with the scrape on it, which scrapes, from what I've been learning from those from last year, also, it's just been phenomenal. Learned about Troy Pottinger's, um, multiple, scent profiles that he puts in these scrapes, and also just learning like why deer use scrapes and why they are um, significant and how that can help out the hunting with your funnels. So like here in Missouri for my funnels, it's not really something that the deer absolutely have to take through. Um, but for a given area, there's going to be a couple places, or maybe one, where you have like a lot of trails come together, and if you take those couple of places and you place like a scrape on one of them, then at least from what I've seen from my experience, then all of a sudden that one funnel or the one place where all those trails come together, all of a sudden that becomes, the main um, spot in there that those deer want to come through, and
Yeah.
that's been really awesome. Also,
Now,
um,
like when you're dealing with these funnel areas and where these scrapes are, what is your majority that you've learned from hunting multiple states? Did you learned like it's dependent on the amount of cover on a hillside, or will they favor the lower third or the upper third? And I mean, have you learned? Are you putting your scrapes down in these like hub areas down in the bottom, or are you trying to put them on a upper third like saddle on these hills?
so like the first thing that comes to mind, if you're gonna go through the effort of like finding your funnel, find where all these deer are coming through, building a scrape there, then you need to have it somewhere where you can actually hunt it, because
Yeah,
I've put like a scrape down at the bottom before, and it's great because you get a ton of pictures of deer. um but it's like, one, it's less specific than I'd like it to be. I guess it depends on the bottom. And then the second thing is, whenever you're down at the bottom like that in the hills, it's really hard to consistently hunt just because you wind.
yeah, absolutely.
Um,
Yeah, unless you have like a big multiple finger where you can dump it down the backside of it or something.
right.
But even then, it's really tough. I feel like in prime time they always bust you in the evening at least.
Hmm.
I mean, it's different when it's full blown rut, but I agree with you. I just wanted your opinion
Yeah.
on how that. I kind of figured you would say you're setting them where you can actually hunt them at. But
Hmm.
have you been running cameras down on the bottoms? Do you notice that like more deer congregate to the bottom side versus the upper third? Because I've kind of learned that in a couple places like that have like a multiple levels of a drainage where they've got like
Hmm.
a lower third and an upper third saddle.
Hmm.
um it's just weird, like sometimes I think it's whatever one has more cover. I've learned like they
Yeah.
kind of tend to use more, I guess, because they like to just travel in the darkness.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that, for sure has something to, do with it too. Where deer will actually, move in daylight hours, like you just said, that has something to do with it too. But on average, as far as like, if you take a hillside and you give, an upper third, the middle and the bottom, all similar cover, I personally, I don't really see them favoring, one over the other. Kind of depends on the spot. I've seen them, in southern Missouri. I've seen most of the deer that I can think of off the top of my head. I've seen them, midline the ridge. So I don't really, I guess I don't really put like a crazy amount of stake in that. But like, if I'm going, I guess I'm just going to describe a funnel. If I'm going along a hillside and it's got a couple different levels on it, and I'm trying to decide which one, well, I'm probably gonna follow it to, let's call it a perfect world or perfect scenario, like up to the top of a ditch funnel. That's gonna get all
Hmm.
those deer, coming around the top of that thing. That's probably, whenever I was growing up, that is a kind of funnel. I didn't really realize it was a kind of funnel and why that was significant um, back then. But that's going to be what I put, my chips into, because like,
Hmm.
whenever, like, if I'm building a scrape somewhere, like, the ultimate goal is to have those deer take that over and have them start using it for themselves. And
Right.
like, if you're trying to build like a and have deer use like a community type scrape, then you need to have, a lot of deer visiting that scrape, and pretty often. There's some
Mm-hmm.
scrapes I've put down in bottoms where, you might get, one buck and, a couple does on there, just every once in a while.
Yeah.
But if you can put that scrape smack dab in the middle of where these deer have to walk, and they're going to visit that anyways, then all of a sudden you
Yeah.
have increased, the value of that funnel and that scrape, and then that uh that compounds on itself also. I guess
Mm-hmm.
whenever the deer take it over.
Have you ever trapped before?
Nope.
Did you get into trapping when you were younger? No. So like in the past few years I've gotten into trapping, right? And
Mm,
it's really like relatable to hunting. And I've actually heard Troy talk about this too with his scrapes and how we're basically setting a trap just like you would for like a coyote or, or a bobcat. Like basically to dumb it down, like what you focus on when you're trying to trap a bobcat or a coyote, like is like these main travel highways pretty much, and you set
mm,
them up on the corner. So like where could you figure out where a deer is going to travel the most in a certain area, and then you set your trap there. And it's
mm,
just it's a catch and release trap, but we're using cameras to monitor it. And I mean, in my opinion, it's the most fun way to run a trail camera, to like
yeah.
get the video of a buck like working a scrape and like to get them consistent. And then you're like, oh man, like it kind of sucks when it's a normal trail camera and you can't go, or
Right.
like a non-cell cam or anything,
Uh,
because you're like, oh shit, I totally like could have smoked him within this time or that time. But
right.
anymore now, if I have farms that are farther away, I'll run cell cams on my scrapes, and that's pretty
Yeah.
much like my means of inventory. So
Mm.
it's a fun way to do it. I mean, is that what you were using your cameras for a lot of times?
What, for inventory or? Well, I guess.
No,
Um.
no, just I'm saying like on the scrapes. Is that what you primarily would do?
Oh yeah. I can't say I run my cameras on video mode, and I say cameras. I have one cell cam and four regular cams. I noticed the video scares a lot of deer, so I don't put the video on. I just leave the
Are you
pictures.
using any of the lone wolf cams?
I am.
You are. I mean, I
Mm,
notice like it scares a few deer, but
mm,
I mean, I don't know. A lot of times I've got some phenomenal scrape footage like over and over again on those things, man. Like, especially this year, I was running, I think, 5 lone wolf cams, and majority of
see,
them
I
were on scrapes. And I don't know
I
that
actually
I try to put them up a
actually
little bit higher, and I think that helps.
yeah, I can definitely see that helping. Now come to think of it, I didn't actually run any of those lone wolf cameras on video mode, but I'm gonna have to try that one out because
Okay,
I just kind of blanketed,
dude,
trail
they're
cameras and
phenomenal.
video.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
really like them.
No, it's really good, dude. For especially, I think I learned so much more from the video, to be honest with you, than just a picture, because you really get to see some of the attitudes that some of these deer have. Especially,
Mm,
I feel like when you get like a couple bucks together and they're hitting a scrape, you can pick out
mm,
which one's dominant right away. I mean, even if they're
mm,
both big, like seeing
right.
some of the videos with them like posture up and stiff hair and snort wheeze,
Mm,
it's I don't know, I love it. It is
it's
probably one
cool
of my
stuff.
favorite things about running cameras is
Mm,
getting to see their reactions and stuff.
that's awesome.
And interesting side note, man, like coyotes use the hell out of scrapes. I don't know if you noticed that.
No, can't say I have. I just
Yeah, I don't know, maybe it's just my area, but like
it might be.
we've got a ton of coyotes, and
Hmm,
I've got so many videos of a coyote pissing in a scrape. It's just weird.
really? Huh,
I don't
that's
know why.
interesting.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't know. And even a bobcat, like all in this one like community scrape on like the kind of a right outside of a bedding area, right on the corner of like a field edge, and
Yeah.
they just hammered it all season from like October
Huh.
to December.
That's interesting.
But
Yeah, I'm gonna get
yeah,
more cameras.
yeah, it's kind of addicting. It like I think Cody called it. It's a slippery slope. He's like,
It it
so
is
if you get a picture of a giant, are you gonna pull the camera? And I was like, no. And he's like, well, you said you just wanted to use a camera to find a deer. I'm like,
right.
yeah, I guess I'm kind of addicted. Yeah. You know, it's
Yeah,
just
that
fun.
is.
It's fun. I love keeping inventory of them too. But I
Yeah,
do question myself in all honesty, like, am I educating the deer more than I should? You know, because some of them look at the camera and it doesn't even bother them, but
right.
they know that it's there.
Yeah. Mm,
So
yeah, it's a slippery slope to go down. I mean, just because I've just started, I at least as far as I know, I haven't created any bad habits yet. I have seen and listened to and talked to people where I see some extremely bad habits developing,
yeah,
and I try everything I do to stay away from that. Um, like one of the things that I saw is, so I have my one cell cam, and I put it up on this funnel in Illinois, and I have a couple buddies that are over there hunting Illinois also. I put it up like November the 4th, and like that first night there was a bunch of deer that visited that funnel and that scrape that we made in there, and then it was like everything was at night, and I was like, ah, dang. Well, and all of a sudden, there's a picture of one of these deer. It's broad daylight. It's middle of the day. It's like, what the heck. I guess it was just random. And then there was a couple daylight pictures, and then everything would go to dark. And I guess I didn't really I don't guess, I know for a fact that I didn't realize the significance of daytime temperature whenever it's the rut. So I was watching this camera, and I can see everything that's coming through there, in a 3-week time span. And I'm like, okay, these deer aren't coming through here every day. They're just coming through here whenever the daytime temperatures doesn't get, above 50 degrees if they are going to be moving all day. And whenever it's hot, the deer aren't moving through there. Whenever it's cold, the deer are. So whenever I went in there and killed my deer, I had waited for a couple days because it was warm. We had a cold snap, and I hadn't been getting anything on camera for like the 3 or 4 days before that. We get a cold snap. I hop in there and I kill one in 20 minutes. And I've seen um, I've seen some of my buddies and people talk like, they're like, man, this deer is only coming through here every once a week, or maybe twice a week, or something like that. And it's just like, well, if you looked into it a little bit further, you probably notice that these deer are coming through whenever it's cold. So
right.
that was something that I thought was interesting, because I guess, like I said, I'm not that talented of a rut hunter, but I just kind of, it's like, oh, well, it's just the rut. The deer are going to be doing whatever they're going to do, no matter what the temperature is. And that's not the truth.
Yeah.
Whenever it's cold,
I
deer
think
move.
a lot of people kind of, I know a lot of guys that we, do shows with and stuff, like, hate the rut. A lot of like
Mm-hmm.
diehard whitetail hunters hate it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, for me, I feel like that's just how I always, maybe because I hunted more during those time frames because I knew the deer would be moving more
Mm-hmm.
at a younger age. But I always had a lot of fun hunting the rut, and I always felt like I could even target specific deer during the rut because I just knew they were going to be moving more, you know what I mean? And
Right.
a lot of times I did that. And now, like, every year I try to, like, I'm not like afraid of throwing away a season to try to learn a new tactic, but it just kind of seems to like bite me in the ass because I'm really focusing on doing this and scouting more and trying to get it good and like learn a buck's bedding and kill him off of his bed and all this stuff. And it's like, if you just would focus on the principles and do what works for you, you know, you kill a lot more
Right.
deer.
Right.
But I don't know, man. I mean, that's just part of being a hunter, right? Like, you know, we all got to fail and grow our way and grow and see, like you said earlier, like what works and what doesn't, and not be afraid to just do it. So it kind of leads, it's a good transition into my, you know, another good question I have for you. And it's, when do you feel like things like really started to click for you? You know, on, I guess, like chasing more mature deer, like when you started killing more, do you feel like you had kind of a moment where you were like, all right, well, this is what I need to start doing more of, and things just got progressively better?
Um, you know, I guess growing up, I don't know. I guess my answer is going to be whenever I actually went out there and like went to a new piece of ground, started like by myself and learned for myself. Um, you know, so I guess some of these things I know now because whenever I first started hunting, um, like I guess whenever I was hunting private land, a lot of the deer that I killed back then, a lot of them were like, you know, spots that, you know, we had known about for, you know, a long time. And, you know, you go there and, you know, you deer hunt and, um, you know, and you know, your dad tells you, you know, stories of these big bucks, and it was just like, you know, my dad was telling me that, you know, the deer are here, and I just kind of, you know, took that at face value. You know, the deer are there, so you know that's where I'm going to go hunt. And I tell you what, it was quite the drastic change whenever I went from that to having to go out and determine for myself where deer are and where deer aren't, and determining those kinds of things. So I guess putting myself at a little, I guess, at a little bit of a disadvantage to learn, um, is whenever I really started, um, is whenever I really started picking these things up that I can, um, you know, that I could use to find more success on my own. Um, as far as like specifically what it was, like wherever everything just started clicking, I don't know if I could point at like one thing, because it was all just like a gradual change in like learning curve and belief system that I had to develop over a course of a couple different years.
Yeah. So it's
I
really
don't.
kind of, you know, from what you're saying, kind of like once you stepped out of your comfort zone a little bit from hunting like the back 40 to just
Mm,
going out and hunting and scouting for yourself, it just wasn't really any aha moment. And we actually did a podcast on that. It's like, do big buck killers have an aha moment? And it's like, I think majority of guys say no, but you know, I
right.
just was curious, and you know, from where you're at, you know, I feel like you've killed consistently bigger deer for a pretty good time now,
Mm,
and I see you know, you're still chasing giant deer, so I was just curious, you know, where that point might have been for you, if you felt like there was a specific deer, or you know, or a specific time where it was like, all right, man, I need to stop doing this and start doing that.
well, that's kind of what you're seeing like this year, like this past season, and like the seasons following this year. So in the future, you're going to see, um, you're going to see me become more successful because of the aha moments that I've had with funnels and scrapes. Um, like absolutely, because like especially like the funnel thing, it's like I can take that idea and that principle, and I can go apply that to anywhere that deer live. I can go to any state
Mm-hmm.
and do that.
Yeah.
And it's like it's such a it's such a consistent thing that like there's already a spot in Indiana that I've looked at on the map, and I'm like I can I can go there and I can put a camera there and see everything that's coming through this funnel because it's a super tight funnel. And if there's something coming through there, then it's probably going to end up in me killing a deer there. And I don't mean to sound like cocky with that, but that's
No,
just like
it's
the
confidence.
yeah. Well, that's just like the kind of like that's what's going to happen um whenever you put yourself through those learning curves. You might have a down year or two, like you were saying earlier, whenever you put yourself through those learning curves, um
But you
but
come out
event
better on the other end of that tunnel, you know.
yeah, you will. And
Yeah, I mean, you want to get good at anything, got to just keep challenging yourself. I mean,
right.
it none of us like going through it, but you know, if you can learn to grow through it, it definitely will make you a lot better hunter. And I know with what I feel exactly the same way too, man. With like the scrapes and stuff, like I'm fired up to get my
Mhm.
scrapes out there sooner than I have in the past, like, and really
Mhm.
let them soak because I know they're gonna fire up, and it's just a
Yeah,
matter of time.
right. Well, same thing with funnels and scrapes. Scrapes are also one of those things that you can take anywhere to where whitetails live, and you can apply it there. you know
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you got to apply it correctly, but those are the things that I guess I've been kind of seeking here the last few years, is things that I can take to other places, hunting whitetails.
Yeah.
Like the
What are your
the
plans? I mean, do you got any bucket list hunts planned for the next year or two? I mean, what's your goals for the next couple years? I mean, is there any specific states, maybe Iowa? I know you're right there. I mean, has that already happened for you or
yeah, I a lot of people are gonna probably turn the podcast off after this, but I haven't put in for Iowa points yet. Um, I
Okay.
want I want to hit the states that I can hunt every single year, because like if I only get the chance to hunt, one place every 5 years, then it's hard for me to build on information, after that, and
Mm-hmm.
continue with that. Like, my late season hunting here in Kentucky. If I was only allowed to hunt there, every 5 years, what I just learned there hunting late season, that's not going to be applicable for 5 more years. Um,
Right.
so what I want to do is I want to hit like all the over the counter states that are close to Missouri. And my ultimate goal is I want 5 public land deer. Um, Next year we're gonna be going for that. So that's 2 in Missouri, um, 1 in Illinois, 1 in Kentucky, and then hopefully 1 in Indiana. And then I guess, like, besides that, I would love to continue, like, kind of like making that line east. So Indiana, Ohio, um, Arkansas, Tennessee. Um, if I can go and I can kill a buck in every one of those states, I guess that's like my 3 year goal. is I want to kill a buck in like every one of those states. And then as
Yeah.
far as like the class of deer that I'm killing, it just kind of depends on like how much time I have to give it to that place. So like um it's like Missouri early season.
Yeah, I mean, do you have a minimum at this point? I mean, when you're hunting these places, are you like 130 or above or what? I mean, does it matter?
I like I said again, it just kind of depends. I mean, I like 130s. 130s are fun. um,
Yeah, no doubt. And
but
I'm just asking. I mean, by all
yeah,
means, because
but like in
that's what I want to do too, dude. I want to keep it fun and
hmm
go back to killing more deer than letting deer of that
right.
caliber slide. You know,
Well, it's like so like my
then
Missouri early.
I want to kill multiple bucks.
Oh yeah, but like Missouri
Having the one
early
buck tag
season.
is not fun.
Yeah, no, I don't know about all that. But like my Missouri early season, I have a lot of time with that tag, and so I can be more selective.
Yeah,
This past season, we're at Thanksgiving, and I have 3 buck tags in my pocket still. Guess what that means? That means my standards are dropping, and I'm gonna
oh
kill
yeah,
something. Um, so
right.
that's what I did. I didn't let anything walk um, on the hunt I had there in Illinois, and then I killed a deer in Missouri a week later, and they were nice bucks. They weren't anything to brag about or nothing, but like at that point, it's like, okay, we're past like most of the good rut. It's like, I got 3 buck tags left. It's time to kill. Um, I'm not
Yeah,
gonna be letting it,
that's
hardly
a
anything walk.
hard feelings there. Yeah, I
Uh-huh.
feel your pain on that one this year.
Yep. But
It is what it is, man.
mhm.
I feel like Indiana, without talking too much about it, I feel like it's a great state. I'm kind of excited for scouting Indiana more
Mhm.
this next upcoming season.
Mhm. Yeah, and then I knew whenever I killed that second buck in Missouri, I knew I was gonna have quite a bit of time in Kentucky. But even though how much time I had, um I was gonna be hunting a new area. And so my standards were gonna kinda I wasn't really sure where they were gonna land. We were just gonna kinda see what happens. But I shot that deer in Illinois, and then the next day I was in Kentucky trying to figure out where I was gonna spend my late season. And I checked out a couple different places and decided on one. Like I said, I went back to Missouri, killed my buck there, and I'm like, all right, now I got the next a little over a month, which I'm working even though I'm self-employed, I'm still working a full-time job. So this is just on the weekends.
Hmm.
Um, I'm making the 7-hour drive out there, spend 2 days, then drive back and be tired of shit, from from Monday morning,
Right, right.
um, working. But so I was like, yeah, we'll just kind of see what we get into whenever we get out there. And um, there was a pretty decent deer that I feel like I could have got if I just would have focused my efforts in on him. But it was getting later on into December, and I still got over 2 weeks of season to work with, and I know I'm taking off the last 10 days, and I got a picture of a really nice 8 pointer, and I'm like, okay, for this deer in this area, kind of where he's at for the time that I have, I was like, I see this one. I could definitely see this one working out. So I started chasing after that deer, and man, that that was a long, heartbreaking battle with that thing.
Yeah. I had the same experience with a deer I chased the last like 6 weeks of season. It was
Hmm.
fun though. I mean, I've had people ask me like how I felt about that. I'm like, honestly, I had a blast. I mean, it's fun smacking him on the ass over and over again, and like he just won't leave, and it's just like, all right, man, like, all right, it's go time. Like the confidence was there every hunt that it was going to happen, and then like 2 times I hunted him, and he pops up like on the other side of the farm or the other side of the field. Like we had so
Hmm.
many. I think I had like 5 encounters with this buck. So
Mm.
he just killed me, man. I'm like, you're
Oh my
oh,
god.
I tip my hat to him. And he wasn't a mega or anything like that. He was just a
Yeah.
big old mature 8,
Hmm.
bruiser, super pissed off attitude. Got
Hmm.
so many video clips of him, but that's what makes it fun, man. I think it's
Right.
cool to get your ass handed to you every once in a while.
Hmm.
It was a humbling year, but I had a lot of fun too.
Yeah.
My main goal was to hunt with some buddies and have fun, and I did have a
Hmm.
lot of fun. So,
That's good.
well, Jace, I wanted to close this one out, man. We're getting a little close on time. You were talking about shed hunting earlier. It's pretty relative to right now when this is getting
Hmm.
ready to drop. What are maybe 2 or 3 good tips you could give some of our guys for trying to find some more sheds?
Sure. So I actually just took some new shed hunters out the other day, and if I'm if I'm trying to find a shed, I'm trying to think of an antler on a deer's head as a ticking time bomb. It can go off at any time, and you don't know when that's going to be. So the the thing that's going to key you in on the most sheds is being where those deer are spending the most time, which is either going to be in their bedding area, their feeding area, or which I don't know if a lot of people know about this one, but where I find probably most of my sheds is in night bedding areas. So like these deer throughout the night, this is how I the shed I found the most recent. This is how I found his. Um, and like I said, a lot of the other sheds I've found, but there'll be a destination food spot sometimes. If things are kind of leaning your way, there's going to be a destination food spot, whether that be a cluster of acorn trees that are falling, or a cornfield or a bean field. But there's going to be somewhere there that's close to that food that these deer in the night are going to bed down, chew their cud, and they'll kind of bed down there and get up, feed, and go back there and bed down for the night. Um, Usually they're right off the food. Usually has to do with CRP, but this is where I find um, a lot of my sheds. And if you can get like whenever the deer are dropping, um, like let's say if you have like a week's worth of like just straight north winds, well, those deer in the night, they're not going to want to deal with the wind at all. They're going to want to be protected. So a lot of times what I've seen is they'll be down in a draw. I guess the draw would be like running north and south, and the high side of the draw is on the north side, and the low side's on the south side, and that's giving them wind protection, so they can go down there, not be too cold, chew their cud, bed down for a while. Um, so that's I guess it's that pattern's just relevant to what your conditions are, but night bedding, that has been probably the biggest thing um, for me as far as like consistently finding sheds.
Yeah, that's awesome. I actually, I never really thought about it that way. I always tried to focus on bedding most of the time, and like, there's travel
Hmm.
routes between for fields, and I mean, obviously, it's easy to find them if they're in a cut bean field or something like that.
Right.
But I always like asking, man, because everybody's got their kind of niche that they found. I know when
Mm,
I found some of my biggest sheds in the hardwoods. It's
mm,
just it's all dependent on your area, and I guess you figuring out your deer. But I hope that
mm.
helps some of you guys that are still listening. Hopefully you're still hanging in there with us. But Jace, it's been a blast, man. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate your time. Would Where can some of our guys follow you? I know is it Nature of the Beast? Is that your Instagram?
Yep, that is my lovely Instagram handle, Nature of the Beast.
I love it.
You can find me on Facebook, Jace Allen. There's a couple Whitetail Addictions episodes out on their YouTube channel, as Justin has some on there as well. You can find us on there.
Yes, sir. Well, Jace, we'll definitely we'll catch up with you here another time. Hopefully, we can have you on during season next year if you're down for it. But
Sounds
I
good.
really appreciate you, dude. All
Absolutely.
right, man. Until next time. See you.